It was the summer of 1998, and I was 16, itching for a bit of independence. My family had this old plot of land up in northern Michigan, about an hour and a half north of Traverse City. Nothing fancy, just a clearing in the woods with a fire pit and room for a tent. We'd been going there since I was a kid, mostly for quick weekends of fishing or just escaping the heat of the city. My parents figured I was old enough to handle a solo overnight, so they dropped me off with the family dog, Max, and a cooler full of sandwiches and sodas. "Call if anything feels off," my dad said, handing me the truck keys. I nodded like it was no big deal, but inside I was thrilled. Just me and Max, under the stars, no rules. Max was a beast of a dog, a chow chow crossed with a black lab, all muscle and thick fur, pushing 90 pounds easy. He had that chow's curled tail and fluffy ruff around his neck, but the lab side made him loyal to a fault, never aggressive unless provoked. He'd sooner roll over for belly rubs than bark at a squirrel. He was my shadow on the drive up, head out the window, tongue lolling in the breeze as we wound along those narrow county roads lined with birch trees and ferns. The property was remote, the kind of place where the nearest neighbor was a mile away through dense woods. No cell service, no lights after dark, just the hum of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. I arrived in the late afternoon, the sun filtering through the canopy in golden shafts. Set up the tent quick. A beat-up two-person dome my brother had outgrown, stakes hammered into the soft earth. Built a small fire, roasted some hot dogs, and tossed Max a bone from the cooler. He gnawed on it contentedly while I leaned back against a log, flipping through a dog-eared copy of Hatchet. I'd read it a dozen times, but out here it felt relevant. The evening cooled off fast, the sky turning that deep indigo before full dark. Stars popped out one by one, brighter than anything in the suburbs. Max curled up by the fire, and I zipped myself into the tent around 10 p.m., feeling pretty pleased with my rugged adventure. Sleep came easy that first night. The tent was stuffy with the day's warmth still trapped inside, but the rustle of leaves and Max's steady breathing lulled me under. I woke once around 2 a.m. To him, shifting outside, probably chasing a raccoon in his dreams, but he settled quick and I drifted off again. Morning was crisp, dew on the grass, birds chattering like they owned the place. I spent the day exploring, hiked a faint trail to a creek about a half-mile in, where the water ran clear over smooth stones. Max splashed around, shaking off sprays that soaked my jeans. We ate peanut butter on crackers for lunch, and I even tried my hand at whittling a stick with my pocket knife, mostly just hacking it to splinters. By afternoon, clouds had rolled in from the lake, gray and heavy, promising rain. I gathered extra firewood, just in case, and checked the tent's seams for leaks. Max stuck close, his ears perking at every snap of a twig, but it was all normal woods noise. As dusk fell, the air turned thick with humidity. I got the fire going again, sparks rising into the dimming sky. Supper was cold cuts and an apple. Nothing gourmet, but it hit the spot. Max paced the edge of the clearing once or twice, sniffing the underbrush, but he came back when I called, flopping down with a sigh. The rain held off, but thunder grumbled distantly, like a stomachache echoing over the hills. I turned in early this time, around 9:30, figuring I'd beat any downpour. Zipped the flap tight, double-checked the flashlight in my sleeping bag pocket. Max nosed his way in after me. He didn't love tents, but he wouldn't stay out alone. He wedged himself at the foot of my bag, a warm lump against my feet. The woods went quiet outside, save for the wind whispering through the pines. I lay there listening to it, my mind wandering to school starting soon, friends I hadn't seen all summer. Sleep tugged at me slow, and I let it take me. Sometime later couldn't have been more than a couple hours. I jolted awake. No dream, No noise at first, just that disoriented haze of middle-of-the-night grogginess. The tent was pitch black, the air cooler now, carrying a faint dampness from the woods. My heart was thumping a little too hard. Like my body knew something my brain hadn't caught up to yet. Then I heard it. Max. He was standing in the middle of the tent, right between me and the flap, his bulk blocking the faint outline of moonlight seeping through the nylon. No tail wag, no whine, just rigid stillness. And that growl. It started low, so deep it vibrated through the floor, barely audible, like the rumble of a distant truck on gravel. His teeth were bared. I could see the white glint in the dark, and his hackles were up along his back, fur standing like a ridge. I froze, breath shallow, eyes wide but seeing nothing. Max didn't move at first, just held that pose, his head turning slow, deliberate, like he was scanning the shadows. That's when I noticed he was tracking something, circling inch by inch, nose twitching, ears locked forward. Whatever it was outside. I strained to listen, and there it was. Footsteps. Soft, deliberate crunches in the leaves, circling the tent. Not human, or at least not clumsy human, too quiet, too rhythmic, like something padding on 4 legs, testing the ground. Then the breathing, a heavy snort. In and out, close enough that it felt like it was right against the fabric. Not a deer's huff, not a coyote's yip, thicker, more deliberate, like an animal weighing its options. My pulse hammered in my ears, but I didn't dare move. The tent felt smaller, the walls pressing in. Max completed his slow turn, pausing at each side as if pinpointing the sound, his growl never breaking, just that steady subsonic warning. When he faced the entrance flap again, the footsteps stopped. Silence stretched, broken only by my own ragged inhales, which I tried to muffle against my sleeve. The snorting picked up once, twice close, maybe sniffing at the base of the tent, and Max's body tensed, a low quiver running through him. I fumbled blindly for the flashlight, fingers brushing the zipper of my bag, then closing around the cold metal. But I didn't click it on. Light might make things worse, draw attention. Instead, I lay there, barely breathing, watching Max's silhouette. The air grew heavier, laced with the musky scent of wet earth and something sharper, animal-like, seeping through the mesh. Gradually, the sounds faded. The footsteps retreated, crunching softly into the brush, the breathing dissolving into the night chorus of insects. Max held his ground a while longer, ears swiveling before his shoulders eased. The growl tapered to a huff, and he turned, padding over to lie beside me. His side pressed warm against my sleeping bag, but his eyes stayed fixed on the flap, unblinking in the dark. I didn't sleep after that, neither did he. We just waited, staring at that thin nylon barrier, the world outside a black void of possibilities. Every rustle in the leaves made my stomach twist. Wind? Another animal? Or it coming back? The hours crawled by, marked only by the slow shift of moonlight across the tent floor. Max's breathing steadied, but he never fully relaxed, his head lifting at the slightest noise. Dawn broke gray and misty, the first birdsong piercing the quiet around 6 a.m. Light filtered in, turning the tent from cave to cocoon. Max finally stood, stretched, and nosed at the flap like it was any other morning. I unzipped it fast, heart still racing, and stepped out into the chill. The clearing looked unchanged, dewdrops on the ferns, fire pit cold and ashen. No tracks I could see right away, just the usual scatter of prints from smaller critters. But as I scanned the tree line, My eyes caught indentations in the soft dirt near the tent's side. Paw prints, large ones, clawed and splayed, deeper than a dog's. Bear, probably a black bear, common enough up there, drawn by the food smells or just wandering. Michigan had plenty of them, bold but usually shy unless cornered or hungry. I didn't stick around to confirm. Packed the tent in record time, stakes yanked, poles collapsed, cooler shoved into the truck bed. Max hopped in without a fuss, glancing back at the woods once before settling. The drive home was quiet, the radio off, my mind replaying the night in loops. By the time I pulled into the driveway, the sun was up, and the adrenaline had ebbed to a dull ache. Told my parents it was a great trip, no big deal, but I never went back alone. Max got extra treats that week, and for years after, I'd wake at night sometimes, listening for that growl. I park the pickup beside the logging spur, kill the engine, and let the quiet settle in around me. The sudden lack of noise feels almost physical, like a blanket dropped over my shoulders. The scheme is simple. One night, under the stars. By myself on the ridge to remind myself that I still know how to be quiet, how to be still. No buzzing phone in my pocket, no rifle across my back, just the tarp, the sleeping bag, and the tiny camp stove I lugged as a boy. The sun has already fallen behind the far hill, painting the sky a thin, bruised blue already in its final moments. I comfort myself the darkness will be welcoming once the stars have fire burned into. That's what I tell myself at least. The first hour, I go on autopilot. I collect a handful of dead birch sticks, shave off a few curls of fatwood with the pocket knife I've had for decades, and coax a flame the size of a teacup. The fire is so small, I have to stoop down near, knees nearly in the embers, just to feel its heat. It's enough to drive the mosquitoes off. Enough to give me something to look at besides the black wall of spruce moving in on all sides. Every now and then a branch cracks as loud as a cap gun, and I startle before I can stop it. I laugh it off, my head shaking 32 and still worried about pine sap. The laugh's not as natural as I'd have it be. The coffee water does, at last, steam, and I fill my dented enamel cup, wrap both hands around the heat, and stay still. I listen. Wind whisks over the treetops in a long, interminable sigh. It's the kind of sound that doesn't really stop, but sort of ebbs and swells like the tide. Some distance away, something knocks wood on wood 3 slow thuds. I tell myself it's just a branch settling down, an act of nature. I sip, I count my heartbeat, I take another sip. The beat is comforting, like a simple routine I can control. And then at last I get into the sleeping bag. Boots, shoulder to shoulder by the tent door like 2 cold sentinels keeping watch. The fire has burned down to embers, smoking softly under their own pale ash, a dull orange beet fighting not to die. Stars cover the sky now, hard, cold, unforgiving. I am proud for a moment, smug even. No city light, no engines, no screens. Me alone, the world spinning, and the silence I sought. I allow myself to float, and I count satellites as they inch across the dark. I wake up because the woods are amiss. No wind, no crickets, no night birds. It's the silence that drags me up out of bed, not any sound. My ears are filled with cotton. The absence presses in until I can't stand it. Then, somewhere down by the creek, a stick snaps clean and deliberate, like a bone popped into place. My eyes are wide in the dark. I am not breathing, waiting for what comes next. Nothing. I talk quietly to myself. Deer. Just a deer. But the air is listed to one side, as though the whole woods has been shoved a few degrees out of square. I sit up, slowly unzipping the bag, boots wrapped around one fist. My pulse is so strong it is outside me, a drum being beaten by some other person. I glance out towards the line of trees, and nothing but white trunks stand in the black. Then, close one, at most 20 yards, a shuffling, cloth on bark. Not hooves, not paws, cloth. Denim, maybe canvas. I stand stock still. All of Hermit's stories about childhood and meth cookers come back at once, banging in my head. I look over to the fire pit where I place the hatchet blade, catching dim red light, glinting like bait. I slip feet into the boots, lace halfway, and push myself up, the sleeping bag crumpled over my shoulders like some hapless cape. The coals pigment me in pinkish red. Beyond that, everything is ink. I stand frozen, attempting to hear for footsteps, but the silence has grown thick again. My head spins into hyperdrive. I envision the truck keys in my jeans, the serpentine spur road that curves down to the county gravel, the 30-minute stagger through darkness if I tried to do it blindly. Every thought ends in a brick wall. Then I smell it. Cigarette smoke, one drag. Honey sweet and stale, curling in from the left. My stomach rolls over on itself. I don't smoke. No one near me is within 40 miles of this ridge. I peer to the left, my eyes big, but the dark stays firm. The smell lingers anyway, sour and real as rust. My legs go hollow. I say, "Hey?" before I can stop myself. The word collapses flat, swallowed up by the trees. No answer. I edge closer to the hatchet, crouch low, fingers on the cold metal of the handle. The steel is heavy, reassuring in a manner I hadn't expected. I stand up, balance it, take one cautious step closer to the truck. The spur of gravel is 30 feet away, 30 feet of naked ground that feels like a mile. I picture a figure just at the outer edge of the fire glow, watching, waiting. That's when I hear it. Breathing. Low, through the nose, controlled. It isn't mine. It's on the right, 10 feet behind a spruce as wide around as my shoulders. My heart thumps. I turn, hatchet raised, eyes sweeping the black. Nothing moves. I count to 3 in my head, back away from the road. The breathing keeps pace behind me, changing, keeping step. Whomever it is, they're not concealing themselves. They're letting me know that they're present. I snap. No foreknowledge, no plan, raw instinct. Legs pump, tearing across the earth jagged with needles. Roots snag my boots, ankles wrench, but I keep my feet, fueled by terror. Behind me, a laugh. Soft and almost polite. Not entertained, approving. As if I've passed a test that I never wanted to pass. I don't look back. I hit the spur road, rocks scattering, and fight with my keys. My fingers are clumsy, wet. The metal handle of the door is salvation. I yank, slip in, bang, lock. The cab closes over me, the overhead light going out. For an instant, I think I'm safe. My gasping fills the air, mixing with the stale smell of stale coffee. Then it appears. A shape materializes at the windshield, no head, only a silhouette blacker than the sky that's behind it. A hand extends, fingertips against the glass. 4 circles of condensation materialize against the cold. My breath catches. I turn the key. The starter moans, coughs, fails to start. The second try labors on forever. At last, the engine coughs to life, just as the hand withdraws, vanishes back into the darkness. I floor it, tires scattering gravel, fishtailing down the spur. The rearview mirror flashes with a glint, maybe the hatchet I lost, maybe something else catching starlight. Then it's gone. The road flattens onto county gravel, and I keep the speedometer pegged until first farmhouse lights appear, plain and yellow, 20 miles on. I never saw a face, no monster, no ghost. Just another guy, out in the dark, who couldn't find anything to say. That's the weight that presses like a boulder in my chest, the choice he made in silence, to let me know he could extend his hand and touch the glass. The deep breath he drew through his nostrils while I was standing there in my bare feet, gripping an axe I didn't even know how to hold.